to tell you about what the book is about, what we try to do there. It is my great privilege as well to introduce my good friend and collaborator now for 23 years, author of 8 books of films that we have worked on. We've turned out, I think Jeff has written 3 while I was talking. And Geoffrey Ward.
Thanks. Can you hear me all right? Okay. I'm going to be very brief because I really do enjoy questions and answers. But I did want to say, I am, I think, the luckiest historian on earth because I get, thanks to Ken, largely, I get to tell great stories and then I get to tell them again. And I don't think anybody else has that pleasure. It allows me, I think maybe you'd be interested in the process of what the difference is. It allows me, for one thing, to revive characters who have died on the cutting room floor. It allows me to win an occasional argument a little late that I lost early in the process. It allows me to provide a kind of context. The film produces its own kind of context, and I wouldn't want to denigrate that at all. It puts you there. I can't do that on the page, or I can only try to do that. But I can provide greater context, give a fuller story, and tell you more about the characters that you've already met on screen, and to add new ones. And both of those things are true in this book. The great joy of doing both things, both film and the book, is to try to tell a chronological, complicated story built around a very, in this case, very large cast, and keep everybody, I hope, readers as well as viewers, interested in what's going to happen in the next chapter to that person. I don't want anybody to be forgotten from chapter to chapter. That's tricky, but it's also an unbelievably exciting intellectual game to play, and it's very inspiring. I thought I'd add just a little bit of what the new material was. There's a wonderful woman in the film named Sasha Weinsheimer, who was 8 years old, I think that's right, when she went into this. She was living with her family in the Philippines. She was locked up in the Santo Tomas civilian internment camp by the Japanese and appears in every show. And your worry in the film is whether that, even though you know she's there, you're not sure she's going to make it, and whether the rest of her family will make it. And she's a marvelous woman and a wonderful storyteller. In the course of doing her story, I found, I think, 35 books, memoirs, journals, and so on, all of which I've drawn on for a much richer picture of what Santo Tomas was like. That's the kind of thing you can do in a book that you just don't have time to do in a film when you're doing so many other things. There were just 2 other things. One is this, what stunned me as I worked on this, and I've been a historian for a long time. I used to edit American Heritage magazine. I've been at it a while. Was the incredible universality of this war. Everybody, I'm sure everybody in here, is connected in some way to the war. A relative was in it. Your mother worried about it. They say to grease in the kitchen at home when you were young. Everybody was involved. And this continued even during the process. I swung for many years next to a guy at a health club in New York. I think I've known him for 4 years. And after the 3rd year, it's New York, so you don't actually tell each other anything about each other. He's a nice guy, and we joke every day in the locker room that we swim. Hey, one time he said, what are you working on? I said, I'm working on a book about the war. Where are you? I said, well, I'm at the Battle of the Bulge. Oh, he said, I was in the Battle of the Bulge. Where? I was in Bastogne, the 101st Airborne. So he is now a character in the book. I could not leave him out. And finally, I just wanted to end with a story about the cover. because I think it tells you something about the generation that we're talking about, and the incredible reticence and admirable modesty of that generation. You can see him behind me. There's a guy on the cover who obviously has been through hell. You can tell that in his eyes. He was a stretcher bearer on Saipan. When we were finished, a relative of his saw this on a poster and wrote in to Ken or Lynn, or I don't know who got the letter, saying that that was almost surely their uncle, that he had never really recovered from the war, that he had lived a very, very tough life, and that when he died, among his very few belongings was that picture, which appeared in Life magazine. And everybody in the family knew that that was their uncle. We were thrilled. Oh, and the other unbelievable piece of information is that out of all the pictures of people in the war that we could have chosen to put on the book, tens of thousands obviously, he had worked in a Waterbury factory. So I was thrilled by this, and we still had time to put a caption, at least, on the jacket explaining this story. But we checked with the family. We wanted to be sure if we could see, we just wanted to be very sure of the identification so that we didn't embarrass ourselves. And they were all ready to send us all the verification we needed, photographs of him and so on. Then they wrote and said that the family had decided that they didn't want to use his name, that it should stand for all the guys that won that war. To me, that tells you almost everything you need to know about that generation. Let's have some questions.